It seems like the New York Rangers are going to be very active this offseason. And with that being said, it definitely seems like this team could have quite a bit of cap space available to spend in free agency, especially if they go out there and trade away a guy like Chris Kreider, for example, who could save the team about $6.5 million per season there. You also have a guy like K'Andre Miller, who is an RFA. He'll need a new contract, so if you trade him away, you'll save at least about $5 million. I'd imagine something around there, which is what he'll potentially get on his new deal. Something around there is kind of what I'm guessing. And even a guy like Carson Soucy as well, who was picked up at this past NHL trade deadline, he has a cap hit of $3.25 million for this upcoming season in 2025-2026. So maybe he ends up getting traded away to save the Rangers even more cap space. So my point being, if this team wants to open up a good amount of cap space, they definitely can if they want to be big buyers in this upcoming free agency or just to make some other kind of trade. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at some of the top and some of the best kind of free agent targets and kind of fits for this New York Rangers team. We're not just going to look at the, absolute kind of best players here. We're going to look at some pretty solid players who could also be, pretty solid fits on this New York Rangers team. So let's get right into it here and just start off at the top there with some of the top guys that will become available, and then we'll take a look at some of the lower tier guys who still could be some important adds for this team. So first off here, we'll quickly talk about Mitch Marner, as I did previously make a video, just specifically on Mitch Marner possibly signing with the Rangers earlier on. So if you want to have more in-depth kind of information on the Rangers possibly making this move here, go check out that video from, I would say, a week or two ago. But, first off with Mitch Marner, I understand why fans wouldn't want to see him signed. He is going to get a massive payday around that $13 million mark per season there. So he's going to have a massive cap hit, and he isn't an absolutely elite playoff performer. I think, game in and game out for the most part there. He's playing pretty decent, but may not be at his absolute kind of, highest potential level for the most part there come playoff time. So he is one of those guys, but he is in that Toronto market there where he is kind of a hometown guy. There's a lot of crazy pressure on these players, especially someone like Marner who is, kind of that kind of hometown kid. So I think it's a little different there. So if he did come to New York, although it still is a major hockey market with some pretty heated media, the pressure might not be as much kind of on his shoulders that he would feel, obviously, with him, not being that kind of hometown kid there. So maybe be a little different there. Maybe he can just kind of come to the Rangers, let's say, and he blossoms and becomes some crazy playoff performer. It's definitely a possibility. I think it'd be a nice add for this team. Whether or not this team wants to go out there and re-sign a guy like Panarin definitely could play a bit of an impact on what their decision is with someone like Marner, but at the end of the day, it definitely is still possible. He just re-signs with the Leafs. And after Marner in this free agent class, you've got some pretty solid centermen here who are kind of in their mid-30s with guys like Matt Duchene, John Tavares, and Mikael Granlund, who I think all three of them could be pretty nice fits on this Rangers team in that third-line center role. Now, I'm not sure I see the Rangers signing any of these guys, although if they did, I'd be pretty happy with that, but I just don't think the team is going to go after them, although if they did sign them to be that third-line center, I think all three of them, Duchene, Tavares, and Granlund could all play that role quite well. And then obviously you've also got a centerman like Sam Bennett, who I've talked quite a bit about there, where I do think, as long as you're not going too crazy high with that cap hit there, I think he'd be a phenomenal add for this team to be that third-line center. I know a lot of fans don't think it's quite worth it to go pay a guy like Sam Bennett to be that third-line center, and I get that. I mean, I'm not in kind of love with the idea of paying a third-line center that much, but if he can truly have that kind of an impact on this team, that I think he possibly can, especially come playoff time, it definitely could be worth it as long as they don't go too high with that cap. And that's kind of the big question there is, does a team like Utah with a bunch of cap space go up there and massively overpay a guy like this? That is definitely a possibility. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there with Sam Bennett. He could definitely be a guy who gets overpaid with his kind of play style and how he kind of affects the playoffs there. So I think he'd be a great add, although it really kind of does depend there whether or not a team goes out there and is willing to overpay by quite a bit. And now we have a guy by the name of Yanni Gourde, who I think with where he's at right now in his career could end up being a perfect fit for this Rangers team on that third line as that third line center. I think his kind of play style there, although he may be a bit undersized, kind of around about 5'9" there, he definitely plays with an edge to his game there, is a pretty physical guy, especially for that size there, can get under the other team's skin there, play a solid two-way game, help kill penalties, pretty solid all-around kind of two-way centerman, can help produce offensively as well. He's also a guy who has 88 career playoff games played, of course, has won 2 Stanley Cups as well, so he's someone with a lot of playoff experience there, has been also a very good kind of playoff performer as well. He's really done quite a good job there, having 88 career playoff games played. has those 2 cups, but also has 43 total points in those 88 games played. Not bad at all. Really solid two-way center, brings that physicality, can block some shots, be a good team player, and I definitely think would be a really great fit for this Rangers team in a third-line center role, and definitely, I would say, would be cheaper, definitely will be cheaper than a guy like Sam Bennett, so he could be a perfect fit for this team in a third-line center role. And unless the Rangers decide to sign a guy like Matt Duchene, John Tavares, Mikael Granlund, or, Sam Bennett, or, of course, a guy like, Yanni Gourde, the only other kind of real third-line center that I think could be a potential fit, and this is kind of on the lower end here of these kind of potential third-line center fits for this team in free agency, is a guy by the name of Lars Eller. He is a very solid veteran forward, has been around the league for quite some time now. He is 36 years old as he turned that in May, so he'd be signing a 1 or 2 year deal, pretty short-term deal, but 6'2" centerman there, brings a bit of physicality, brings some shot blocking ability, solid face-off taker, has been a good two-way center for years and years now in the NHL, isn't going to bring a ton offensively, but could be a solid third-line center. That's kind of what he is, or, third or fourth-line center at this point in his career now, and put up somewhere between 20 to 30 points, maybe something around there, produce a bit offensively, but also help kill penalties, and just be a solid kind of veteran forward for this team. So he's not going to be a game breaker, but just a really solid piece to add to this team to really provide some solid depth down the middle. Now, I understand maybe where there's not that big of a jump between, maybe him and a guy like Brodzinski there. So do you want to go out there and pay a guy like Lars, who is, going to get a decent little paid, I'd imagine. It's not going to be like, league min. So that's kind of the question there. Do you want to go out there and pay, at least minimum, I would say about double there for a guy like Lars compared to someone like, of course, Johnny Brodzinski? That's kind of the question there. But I think either way, Lars could be a really solid third-line center for this team, but he's, of course, going to be a kind of lower talented player from guys, like Matt Duchene or Sam Bennett or Yanni Gourde, so he'll cost a lot less, but he's also not going to bring nearly as much of an impact. So that's kind of the question there, but I think if this team wants to go out there and spend in the lower end for a third-line center, he definitely could be the right fit for this team. And next up here, let's take a look and talk about some free agent defenseman options that could become available for the New York Rangers. And first off, we have a guy by the name of Vladislav Gavrikov, who truly is my top free agent target for this team. I mean, I think on the back end there, this team needs to go out there and add in a true top four guy who can be a good shutdown, reliable defensive defenseman there, who can move the puck a bit, bring a bit of physicality there, and just be a solid kind of veteran option on the back end. And that is exactly what Gavrikov can be. He's not going to be an absolute elite number one defenseman, but he can be a very solid, consistently kind of good defensive defenseman who can shut things down and possibly be a great defense partner for someone like an Adam Fox as well. So I think going out there, spending a bit of money on a guy like Gavrikov definitely could be worth it for this Rangers team. There's also some other kind of decent options available. Not a ton of great defensemen available, but some other kind of decent ones. A guy like Matt Grzelcyk could be a decent fit for this team. Now, he's not the exact kind of defenseman that I want to see this team necessarily target, but still could be a decent kind of possible add. He's only 5'10", though, so that's kind of where I don't love the fit, but ended up having 40 points this past season there, having a career high. Maybe he's a bit of an outlier season as he did get quite a bit more ice time compared to some of the previous seasons there that he had with the Bruins compared to this season with the Penguins, but 40 points as a defenseman is not bad. 101 block shots, 43 hits there. Can bring a bit of physicality, a bit of a solid defensive game there, help kill penalties. Not the greatest kind of shutdown guy, but can move the puck there, bring a bit of offense, of course, and just be a decent defenseman. So might not be the worst pickup, especially if this team does trade away a guy like Carson Soucy. Next up here, we've got some kind of higher tier options, and that is Aaron Ekblad and Ivan Provorov. Aaron is a right-handed defenseman. Ivan is a left-handed guy, but both are that 28, 29 range there, so approaching their later 20s, but definitely could be some really great additions for this Rangers team. Both these guys are going to get paid a good amount of money there, just like a guy Gavrikov is, but I think either one of them could be a pretty great add for this team and definitely could be that true kind of top four defenseman that this team has been lacking for quite some time now. And, of course, both of them are pretty solid two-way guys, so I think both kind of fit the mold of what this team needs. And really and truly, it kind of depends on whether or not this team probably trades away a guy like Keandre to see if they go out there and really looking to spend, some big money on a defenseman. But I think if they do trade away a guy like Keandre, Ivan and, of course, Aaron would definitely be two pretty great targets for this team and definitely could make a lot of sense. And the last guy we're going to talk about in today's video is Nate Schmidt, who I think could be a pretty solid kind of, bottom pairing defenseman to add in here for this Rangers team. If he's your 6th/7th guy, I think you're doing pretty well there on the back end. He's a 6 foot, 197-pound kind of player, 34 years old in July. So getting up there a bit in age, but a solid veteran defenseman, has been in the league for quite some time now, has a lot of playoff experience, has gone on a few pretty deep runs there back with the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, in like the 2017-18 season as well as the 2019-20. And is a pretty solid kind of two-way guy, can help produce a decent bit offensively, can help bring a bit of physicality, block some shots there, bring a decent defensive game, help kill some penalties as well. So I just think it's an all-around kind of really solid two-way defenseman. And if you can sign him around like $1 million, $1.5 million, something around there, I definitely think that could be a bit of a steal possibly for this team. It really would be a phenomenal kind of bottom pairing or depth defenseman for this team. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on, this video. Do you like some of the targets that I kind of mentioned there? Do you want to see a guy like, an Aaron Ekblad, an Ivan Provorov, a Nate Schmidt kind of signed by this team? Do you like a guy like Lars Eller, Yanni Gourde? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Who are some of your favorite and least favorite kind of targets for this upcoming free agency? I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.